The opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, and with me, as always, is my expert panel, Christina and Anna. How are you both?
Fantastic.
That's great to hear. Anna?
Very good, very well rested. It was a long weekend, and that's always good.
That's amazing. So we are glad that you both are okay. And of course, we have a special guest joining us today. I'm extremely humbled and excited to introduce to you Kevin Ofori. Did I say that right, Kevin?
You did, yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on your show today.
Of course. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So I am Mr. Elliot's personal trainer. I am the age of 23. Right now, I am moving up and about with my life. I am now trying to move on to online training and pretty much try to learn how to be a life coach and proceed through even going back to school, hopefully, when the corona is over. But for now, that's all I can tell you about myself, just for now.
Well, I'm sure that our audience is going to love listening to that voice all show long. Christina, you're smiling already.
Yeah, I love it.
So, of course. So coming up in 15 minutes, we'll be talking about our main topic, activism today. But first, let's take a look at our top stories in our weekly update, starting with a coronavirus update, because who loves a discussion about coronavirus? So the Ford government has put Ontario into a third lockdown, what he's calling an emergency break. He's not using the color-coded system, which he implemented for these purposes. And the main changes are that outdoor dining is banned, hair salons and gyms closed, and outdoor social gatherings are reduced from 10 to 5 people. However, malls, grocery stores, retail stores, religious services, and media production, which is what we're doing, are still allowed. However, there's still a lack of vaccines, and who's to blame for that? Is it Justin Trudeau or is it Ford? Who knows? So we have passed a grim milestone, which is that Canada has had 1 million COVID cases. And guys, we're a year into this now. Why is the Ford government putting us into another lockdown? And Kevin, I'm going to start with you because, like you mentioned, you are my trainer and you work at a gym. So how do you feel about these restrictions being placed?
It's crazy. The fact that it even comes about for the lockdown. I work in the gym, so every day is about health and fitness and lifestyle. We want to preach that to everybody else. Why could they not do that and try to lengthen people's lives out of it? Instead, we kind of just close everything off and just go back to zero. And it's not good. It will never be good. Enough to say, everybody now who would like to push a dream, who would want to be bigger than a dream, cannot be bigger than a dream. And it hurts because I'm one of those people. But COVID can't stop me. Regardless of the lockdown, it cannot stop me. As much as it's stopping a lot of people, it cannot stop me. And as much as it's stopping everybody else, I feel it for them because those are the people who end up working with me. Those people who end up working with me have jobs, have lives of their own. And now they can't really live it anymore. When they come to my gym, they get to express it in every other way. Now they can't. And if they do, they got to do it from home. Like my friend Mr. Elliot here, who loves coming in and enjoys his time. Because of this lockdown, it really prevents from really doing something good. Now we're not really doing anything at all.
This is one way I get to see you. I mean, hopefully after the show, you're not going to make me do push-ups.
But come on, man. What's wrong with that? You don't want to do a little laps for me?
Wait,
You're lucky it's not 9 a.m. I'll make you run.
8 a.m.
Even better.
We still okay.
What?
Christina, what do you think about these new, some people are calling drastic measures?
I'd like to know what's different. I don't know.
Not much.
So these drastic measures, is this not what we've been told to do this entire time? Were these not already the rules? Like, you can't, small businesses are screwed. That's been the case since the beginning.
Yeah.
We can still go to Costco and Walmart and IKEA and malls. I mean, schools are closing, which is like that was just announced today, I think. And I think that's a pretty big, that's a big change from what we've seen with previous lockdowns in the past few months. But people are calling it drastic, but I really don't see a difference. Maybe that's because Toronto has been in this like never ending.
I think that's why people are calling it drastic, and it's because Toronto apparently is one of the cities in North America with the longest lockdown, and people are getting tired, people are getting sick of it because it's always the same, but the results are the same.
Yeah.
So in the end of the day, I was just reading this article about Florida and how Florida pretty much has been living a free lifestyle.
Yeah.
People are going to restaurants, people are going to the beach, people are going, like, actually they're living their lives.
Did those numbers go up?
But in Florida, a lot of people are keeping themselves sane.
Weren't they like one of the worst places at
I
one
don't know,
point?
man.
I feel
None
like
of
we
my
are the
friends
worst
have
place.
got
We
it.
are, but I thought Florida at one point was like the hellhole.
No,
of
but
COVID.
apparently,
The thing is, everybody at one point has to meet each other, you know?
Yeah.
according to the numbers, actually cities like New York, cities that have been having a lockdown more severe than Florida, have been doing worse.
Yeah, and like we mentioned on the last episode, Toronto has been the most locked down city in North America. Between indoor dining, gyms specifically, have been closed the longest. And clearly, Albert Einstein defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And we're in a third lockdown. So you think we're going to...
Something needs to change because clearly whatever Ford thinks he's doing is
Not working.
Is not working. Because how have we been in this like never ending cycle of lockdowns and our numbers just keep going up? How is that happening? Like clearly like something you're doing is not working. I mean, closing, and I kind of like backpedaled on this recently, the whole schools thing and tied in with mental health, but I don't like, I also can't even think myself, like, what could we, like, I can't even think about what else we can do.
Change? What is change now?
Like,
That's the question.
Yeah.
What is change?
But I don't know where we go from here.
You're not supposed to.
Okay.
And it's not for us to know. We are just the people, right?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be taking care of us.
Yeah.
They are the government. Right now, if she asked the question, what is change? And I'm asking it also, It's enough to say, if I was to ask him, what is change? I don't feel like there would be a change. Have you ever tasted a biscuit and they put butter over it just to make it taste a little bit better?
Yeah.
That's what change looks to me right now.
It's poutine without the gravy.
Oh,
They should put the
gosh.
gravy on.
Oh, man.
Makes it all better.
It makes it all better, right? But then it's just to cover up to see if there's any true delight in what they're really making up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get straight to the point with them, or what's up,
Well, see, they're saying that they're trusting, Ford says he's trusting the medical professionals, the medical officer of health, and, we're supposed to trust the science, but is science up to, and we talked about this with Roman Baber about science, and he said that science is up for interpretation and discussion, right? But what is the science saying differently in Toronto than it is saying in Florida, considering they're open?
I'm not sure. I think
And Florida has more older population.
Yeah,
Tons.
very big.
the average age in Florida is dead. So
This TV show, like this show is having serious bullying for old people. Okay.
No, we just bully Anna
Well, we do bully Nana.
because
I'm sorry.
Anna's a baby boomer.
Hold on. I'm sorry. We bully Anna? We bully. I'm sorry. We're dealing with the dos Latinas here, and we bully Anna. She's.
I'm talking about maybe
got-
more so off screen. We make fun of Anna for being a baby boomer.
Well, up until last week, we didn't know her.
We
age.
didn't know she was a baby boomer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. Gracias. That's all I wanted to hear in my life.
I'm just kidding.
It's okay. At the end of the show, we're going to
We're
present
dealing
you.
with depression in COVID, and this is what I get.
Well, it's important. It's important to laugh, right? And again, just so you know, we have a special present for you at the end of the season. We're gifting you a cane so that you're able to walk properly.
Yeah.
No,
after this.
you should be gifting me something like maybe I don't know a full vacation stay in Florida. I don't care if it's with
Oh.
old people.
Well, there's a lot
You're
of
in a boardroom in Vaughan. How do you think we can afford a vacation for you? Just letting you know. But anyway,
Oh my God.
let's move on. Wow, this discussion got out of control, but that's fine. Let's move on to Greta Thunberg. So she got a statue erected of her, a 24,000 pound statue, pound as in the currency, not in the weight. Greta Thunberg installed at Winchester University in the UK, and it has sparked anger among students who have branded it a vanity project. The university said no money had been diverted from student support or staffing for this project. But the student union has called for the university to match the statue cost by committing £23,760 in additional funding to student support services across the campus, even though the university has spent £5.2 million this year on student support. So what do you guys think about the statue? And considering there's so many ways to support students, even if there was a $5.2 million spent already, should the statue have been erected? Is it a vanity project?
To me, well, I don't understand why would you make a statue so soon about this person. Like, she's so young, she has so much to do and to prove in her life and her activism. And honestly, at the same time, I don't like a student union. So it is like, I want that money, but at the same time, you're putting that money in something that is vanity. So I kind of agree, but I kind of I don't trust unions at all. So it is like basically, like for me, it is both sides are like not my kind of thing. So yeah, and honestly, the fact that they have already invested a lot of money in the union is like, you're already getting a lot of student services. But at the same time, this statue is pretty stupid in my perspective. So.
Ooh. And Christina?
I don't know how I feel about it. I think about the fact that there's however many statues, and I mean, these are statues of people who are dead at this point. But I mean, there's statues all over the place, like at schools. McMaster's got them. I feel like all universities have like a statue of an old deceased white man,
So who's the statue about? That's what I would like to
Greta
know.
Thunberg?
A little bit more about. I would like to hear
She
from
is, well,
So Greta, where is she from?
Sweden.
Sweden. So
Yeah.
she's 16 maybe. And she's basically just an activist for environmentalism,
Climate
climate
change.
change.
she's been made to be the poster child for climate action. She spoke at the UN and
Yeah.
a bunch of other climate
I
conferences.
think it is too early to like.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think it's too early. I think she's young, and like what happens
That's
if
impressive.
that's what I was gonna say. Is it clearly I think there is some validity to putting that statue up. She has accomplished a lot at her young age. Her message is good. But I don't necessarily see it as a vanity project only because of all the other statues that exist of people. And also the fact that everywhere is named after somebody, you know what I mean? Every school, every street is, for the most part, is named after somebody. So that's all. Those are already vanity projects, right? So I mean, I don't know if I want to.
Well, it's
I don't say it is a vanity project. For example, I wouldn't compare a statue of Simón Bolívar, someone who liberated 5 nations from the Spanish Empire, to Greta Thunberg, who is 16 years old, speaking in the UN.
Yeah,
And that's
Marshall just he made a good or a funny comment. He said, "Why are we even building statues anymore? It's going to be taken down when Greta gets canceled in 2100
That's true.
anyways."
And that's exactly what I wanted to say, because you said everything's named after someone, and you think that it's a vanity project in general, but there is a difference, because many places that are named after someone, those people paid for it. So a lot of hospital wings are named after people who put the money forth. That's why they're named, or in someone's memorial, and that name was selected and the money was put forth by the family or friends and so forth. So in this case, this had nothing to do with Greta paying for it. It was the university that put it together.
Yeah, I don't totally know how I feel about it. I do like her. I think, she's just a kid, and she's done a lot more than many of us in our 20s haven't. And actually, Marcia made a comment. She said, "Greta is someone who has challenged world leaders to take action against climate change. Hopefully, she's a role model for young people."
That's
we could respect the statue in that answer, because if the message is for the young people to be embraced by such a person like that, shoot, put up another one, And I'm saying not all the money should go towards something like that so immediate, but I respect that answer especially, so I do agree.
Wow. Well, in that case, we're going to leave it there in regards to Greta Thunberg, and we'll see what happens to the statue. As Marshall mentioned, who knows if it's going to get torn down, if another statue is going to be erected of her somewhere else. But lastly, we're going to talk about the attack on U.S. Capitol Hill. Now, this isn't the first time that we've talked about an attack on the U.S. Capitol, but this time it was a little bit different. One U.S. Capitol police officer has died, and another is injured after a suspect rammed a vehicle into a police barricade outside the Capitol building on Friday afternoon, according to CNN. The attacker, Noah Green, was 25, was said to be a reserved, quiet college athlete who later developed an intense interest in the Nation of Islam and a penchant for alarming rhetoric. Green insisted on social media that he suffered home break-ins and poisoning attempts at the hands of the FBI and CIA, calling the government the, and I quote, "the number one enemy of black people," and crediting Farrakhan for saving him from these attacks, also reported by CNN. So what do you guys think about this in terms of his motive, in terms of the attack? I mean, for a 25-year-old to make that decision and unfortunately lose his life, I mean...
Well, from the sounds of it, it sounds like there was probably some mental illness going on there. When you think that this is a common symptom or characteristic of somebody who's going through a psychotic break or paranoia, that they're being poisoned, that they're being followed, that they're being watched, when that's a very common delusion that people who are going through an episode will experience. So it sounds to me like clearly something was off. The obsession with Islam is alarming because, of course, when we get into those extremist territories with any religion, it's scary. But I do, from the sounds of it, I think this was, and this is not to excuse these actions. I just think that
it might be a reason.
There might, and it's not an excuse, but a reason or an explanation for why he may have felt this way or acted this way.
Anna?
Yeah, I just subscribe a lot of what Christina said. Like, obviously, there might be a mental illness involved, psychotic breakdown maybe. And also the fact that he got maybe, people who have like psychotic tendencies, once they get in connection into a religion, it's very easy for them to become like obsessive compulsive about that.
About religion.
Yes, about
That's
religion.
also super common.
And the fact that he got involved into Islam, you don't know what he was watching, you don't know the message that he was getting. So it was very, maybe his own brain made him feel like more indoctrinated and more, focused and versed on this. Mm-hmm. So what I wonder, and maybe what was the trigger, there must be a trigger somewhere.
See, I agree with both of the ladies. I don't know what this guy is going through, enough to say the fact that the religion was a big piece for a change in this direction of what his decision was going to be when he was going to go make that last decision towards the capital. I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. Because some people, like, when they go through this religion stuff, those changes are so immediate because now they're so empowered, right? And her comment about, like, really feeling it enough to say you now believe you're living it, you might be actually being followed, is a thing. So I don't know if he's always 100 in his head, but I don't agree with the situation. I don't agree that that should have been done. I don't agree that that should have been made out to be a way to lose your life, you know?
Yeah. And that's a good point. You know, all three of you mentioned that when you get to the extremist side of religion coupled with mental illness,
It's a time bomb.
Yeah, and obviously there was a trigger, like you said, something would have happened. But that's where we're going to leave it there. Let's move on now to our main topic, which is activism today. If the past year has taught us anything, it's that people are vocal about what they dislike. Sometimes they're so vocal that they're often called, or even self-described, as activists. But why is activism in such an upward trend? Is our world more unjust now than in the past, say, 50 years? Or are people just more confident and willing to now speak up for injustice? Or perhaps it's just trendy. With our special guest, Kevin, our panel takes a look at the recent rise in protests and petitions taking place across the world, and especially North America. As always, we are live on Facebook, so make sure to comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. So we're going to start with activism as a whole. What is activism to you, Kevin?
Like, are we talking, like, obviously petitions, rallies, those kind of stuff that get people's ideas to move, especially when they want change within the government?
Mm-hmm.
What do I think about it? It's really good. What I think of it per se is that it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Without it, you can never know what people are really thinking. Enough to say you never know the motive of the next decision. Just like our last conversation, right? You never know that with our activism, is it making it a better place or is it bringing us down? So our voices is our way to guide us, especially. And activism in that sense is, especially with rallies and petitions and obviously different means, especially going onto social media. I think it's necessary. I think it's very needed, especially in today's world. Because in 50 years ago, I wasn't born 50 years ago, and I was just sharing this with you guys. Obviously, it probably wasn't like this. They didn't have such a direct way to say the truth if they had a truth. Now the truth is given to us from just across the room, from across the world. And with that is very destructive also, and very good to know because it makes and breaks differences. Now, because the government is starting to know that we're finding out about the truth, activism is very, very, very necessary. Because without it, we're going to be staying in our lifestyle like this for a very, 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 very long time. And I don't work behind a desk. I can't do it. So keeping me in my home is it's not going to work, you know. And I'm going to find some way to get out there as much as everybody else is. That's why activism is now so serious. Because as much as it's vocal, it's now more physical. We are now physically seeing these moves, you know.
Well, we are going to talk about activism. Yep.
I just got a notification saying the live ended. I just want to... I'm not sure if that's...
SpaghettiOs.
The live has it ended?
It just says that on my computer. I don't know if that's what it's saying for everybody. Are we good?
And when I check,
We're still live on the. I'm still watching it live.
Then it might have just been my I don't know. Maybe it was a brief little. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't.
It's live.
Well,
it's live.
Yep.
Sorry
for interrupting.
No, it's fine. It's always better to check than if something did happen. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But let's get back on track in regards to activism. So you mentioned we're going to talk about the forms of activism taking place a little later, but right now, activism as a whole, obviously to you, it's very important. Anna, do you think activism is important?
You know that it's very ironic because you said recently actually, we have gotten a rise on activism. But in my case, in my life, I was born into a place where activism has always been there. Like I have been talking about politics, creating awareness since I was in high school. So it is, I think that when you're born into a dictatorship, that's what happens. But, it is very, very interesting. And something that I think is that activism has been always there. Like when you check on the 70s, when you check about the gays movement, the feminist movement, avoiding the Vietnam War, or raising awareness about communism because it was the Cold War, like all these kind of situations, it was always there. The difference is that right now we have social media that makes it more visual, that makes it more noticeable, and that allows people to realize it. For example, last week I was learning about the protests in Myanmar. Do you think that without internet, I will be able to know that there has been protests in Myanmar? No, never. Why? Because it's in the other extreme of the world, because they speak a different languages, because it's a different culture. But now I know. And that's what happens. Like things are traveling faster because of internet and because of social media and because we have, a YouTuber that is raising awareness about this and that. And now we get to know.
Well, you mentioned a good point about that, about activism and how it's evolved. The question is, what is activism to you? Because, as you said, you've grown up with activism, and you've been part of protests, movements, right? That's how this topic came about. We were just having a discussion. And before the show, we were talking about activism to you, Kevin. So what is activism to you? Because you said that you don't necessarily consider yourself an activist.
Okay. So activism is more like being on the front lines. Very direct. Just like those rallies and petitions I brought up. With activism, the reason why I'm not an activist is because I'm not there. I'm not physically there to bring about this change of what I feel with the people. Activism is pretty much just being there, head on, without turning back, because it is so hard nowadays to keep your head forward, keep your head on. That's why not everybody can be an activist, and the people who are, I'm grateful for them. But now, as an activist, we get to the beginning, we get to the middle, but we don't get to the end.
So you would say that being on the front lines is more important and more valuable than, say, posting on social media. Is that what you're getting at?
The thing is it's very important, but I don't know if it's that important, because sometimes you can go onto the front line and just be a shield. You can go onto the front line and just be another voice, and in that time of going up and being a part of that front line, you could still be endangered. So I don't know if it's as important as being a social media activist, because either or, there's going to be repercussions. There's going to be damage.
Well, we actually asked our audience that same question in our poll this week. And Christina, what was the question and what were the results?
So the question was, is activism on social media as important as in person, I believe was the question. And what we had was 51% of the vote said yes, and 49% said no. And it was off by...
Just 2%?
By one vote, it was off.
You see, and it matters. You're understanding now. Everybody is understanding and seeing that we don't know how important it is anymore. You can be there or you could be at home doing this. Now, the question is, what impact can you make to deliver the message? And can we all understand it? Is the frontline people doing it, or is the people at home doing it?
So they both play a part, in your opinion?
We both play a part
equally?
to make equally.
Yeah, I think it takes both sides, because one thing I do think is, like, the people who go out, they're protesting, rallying, whatever it is that they're doing. That's obviously one of the most important parts of activism, because they're putting themselves out there and they're actually, putting themselves in danger to make a change and to send a message. One thing I do acknowledge, though, when it comes to social media is that there's some people who aren't in a position maybe to
speak on it, right?
Yeah, or aren't in a position to, like, for me, when there was like the BLM rallies in Toronto and stuff, I didn't go because of COVID. It would have been maybe something that I would have gone to, but I mean, like, that's just an example of why I didn't go, because I wasn't comfortable being in a crowd. I didn't want to put myself in danger in multiple different ways. So yeah, I was talking about it on social media, and that was because I was coming from a position of not being comfortable with the pandemic and everything. I wasn't comfortable going.
So maybe otherwise you would have went?
I think in other circumstances I probably would have gone to one. But I think there's just a lot of different reasons why somebody might not be able to protest. You may be handicapped, you may suffer from a mental illness that is triggered by large crowds or by noises. So I think there's a lot of little things that might make somebody uncomfortable with actually going out and being there in person. So I don't want to say that social media activism is as important as in-person activism, but I do think that there's somewhat.
You're playing devil's advocate with yourself.
Yeah, because there is to some extent there is equal importance, because
right now, in
today's time, because you need all those social media voices to get people listening more than, if you just show up as a group of 10 to whatever City Hall, and it's 10 of you protesting something with no support on social media. I feel like there's less of an impact. If you go and you do that and you've got a whole social media platform behind you, it's a much more impactful
to build your numbers.
Yeah, it's to spread the message for the people who can't go out and physically do it.
Or for people that don't know, because your message is arriving.
That's the other thing. Maybe you feel like you don't know enough and you want to stay at home and you want to help, you want to be part of the conversation, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're being a fake activist,
Good answer.
Well, speaking of fake activism, what happened in the last summer, fall, there was a whole movement to post a black square on your Instagram in support of Black Lives Matter. Now, was the message, did it come across, or was it, like some people have said, lactivism? Because you're posting a square on Instagram. Does that actually solve the injustices of the world?
Honestly, I found that ridiculous, because I think a lot of people just do it in order to, virtue signal. Exactly. It's not like because they actually care. It's just because, a lot of people are doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Look how merciful I am. Oh.
It's funny. As a black male, I didn't do that. Yeah. And why? Because I ain't got no time. Also, it's because it's just a trend. I've seen these trends so many times. I didn't got to be online for it. I'd be training somebody just to hear this trend pass on just like a regular day. Kapoof. Now it's
Especially
gone.
Business corporations, a lot of them did it. And you're like, of course they're going to do it because it's trendy.
Yeah.
It's trendy.
They capitalize on that.
That's what I was going to say. It's people. The other thing is, like, I personally saw people posting these black squares, and I think back to the fact that a year ago I heard them make like racist comments. Like, you're a recent racist. This isn't something you've overcome. You're posting a black square when in support of Black Lives Matter, when a year ago you could care less, and you were dropping the N-word like it was nothing. But now a year later you're posting a black square on Instagram. What do you really? That's the thing, is that people just want to seem woke. Like there's this culture of people like needing to be all accepting.
Those are the ones
Or
that want the numbers,
followers. Get
you know. I like
followers.
those.
Yeah, they're like, oh, look at me. I'm such a good person. I posted a black square, which means I must really care.
It was funny. I was on my way here. I was on the bus, and I was thinking the same thing. That, you know, all those major, you know, YouTubers, Instagrammers, if they were to do this and they weren't black, it wouldn't matter to me. Yet, why? Not because they're not like us. It's because they're not true to it. And I know that trend is going to get more black, you know, viewers, customers, just to get to their own appeal.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's not true. Enough to say they will always slip up. The truth always comes out. It always comes out. And we end up seeing it on social media. But because of social media, we end up blowing it off also.
Mm-hmm.
And giving them the pass.
To a degree, though, because cancel culture is on the rise, and anything you post on social media is now thrown at you, even if it's 20 years, or not 20 years, but 10 years from
Very much.
today, right?
It's very true, but the consequences is not always so immediate.
Mm.
You could be somewhere else in your life, so high up in your life, 20 years later. Oh yeah, he said this. Now it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, I think that's a whole other issue. Like when I make the comment about people posting black squares when I know they don't mean it. I mean, I'm not talking about people who have tweeted things they shouldn't have a decade ago. I'm talking about people who have recently have clearly, you know, made racist remarks or acted in a racist way, and then they post a black square because it's suddenly a trend. And there's no, if you felt that way, you would have been
I think it was a way of acceptance.
Yeah, but it's also though, like, you would have been championing for these things
Earlier on,
not just because it's a trend and because there's, you know, you would have always cared about Black lives, but that's not the case. These people just want to seem woke and they want to post on social media and get attention, because that's the other thing, right? You're a white person, you post that black square. Wow, what an ally.
Mm-hmm.
They
No,
must really
man.
care. Well, that's not how it is. And I went on a rant about this on one of my
You know what's funny?
Instagram
No, but
stories.
people believe that's a real reality. Like, I see it for
Yeah.
myself. Not because I'm a part of it, because I'm actually away from it.
Mm.
I actually get to see it myself. And it's crazy. A lot of people do this just as a way of, like, just to be accepted now. I'm like, no, seriously, if you shot for this before, then you're part of us.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you join come join the winning team. We don't want you. You know? So I tell people, I even went on the same rant. I'm like, don't post with the black square. 'Cause I'll see you tomorrow with the same message. It doesn't matter. That was the message. Doesn't matter. It's just another day.
I
don't wanna
know
see that again.
people. I know people who posted pictures of them, selfies, Instagrammers, and they posted like a cute message and the hashtag of Black Lives Matters.
Yeah.
This person is not even black. She was Middle Eastern, and she
Well,
actually posted that
That
just to
is
promote
so
her.
Fucking embarrassing.
It's
I'm
a
sorry,
crazy. No,
but
it's funny.
holy
I try
shit.
not to swear, you know. I'm really trying.
Like,
I'm
I
giving my
had to
10%
tell her.
on
I
it,
had to
but-
tell her. You know, if I was a black person and I was involved in this kind of activism, and I see your post, I would be like, "What the hell?"
Imagine me every day.
Oh my god.
So imagine
Well,
like
it's genuinely in your perspective. How do you feel about all this?
Oh, every day I'm more times cringing. Every day I get up, you know, and I'm chasing my goals at the back of my head. But, you know, I start off with my prayer, you know, do my little daily things. On my way to work, you know, I see the social media. I'm going to turn it off now because now I'm starting to cringe. And I see this every day where I'm like, I'm barely on social media. And if I am, it's for work.
Mm-hmm.
Only strictly work. Or like, you know, of interest, like I watch anime and all these little things, you know, just to let people know, you know, I like doing more versatile things. But other than that, I'm not going to be on social media for all those cringes because it's every day.
So the question is, how do you support the causes you care about in general today? Because like you said, very personally, you don't consider yourself an activist because you're not on the front lines.
Mm.
But what's interesting is the wisdom that you know, impart on me during our training. That to me could mean you're an activist.
Mm.
Because while you're not speaking to the masses, you're making an individual difference in someone's life.
You know, it's crazy. I can't really support Black Lives Matter in the front line. How I support is I do it at work, I do it online, I do it in person. You know, I get any brother. It doesn't matter what color. And I would share the same wisdom with my black brothers as I would say with any of my brothers, and let them know we are still all equal. You are my equal. That's why Black Lives Matter, because the message is equality.
You know, that's a very beautiful thing to say, and it's
agree.
because and it's because as a person who is also a minority and comes from a community, that's what I think. The best way that you can boost your community and your reputation and everybody is doing the best that you can.
Oh, very
is
much.
being a
Very
good
much.
professional, is being a good individual, is being good, because that's what I speak of you. And
that's
for
Exactly.
example, you know what is great when people tell me, oh, you Venezuelans, you're good professionals. And it's because they had met different Venezuelans with that reputation. That's the way that you live your community.
It's true. It's very true. That's why it's hard to push this stuff in the front line, because if you could teach it to people within their homes, they could pass it on outside of them.
Without having to resort to
Any extra violence, any extremities, what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think, and just to add to that about like what activism might mean to different people, like I think activism happens within the home, right? Like you raise your children to view their peers as equals. You teach them to treat people equally, to treat others how you wish to be treated, and maybe some people wouldn't see that as activism, but I think it's important that, just to add to that, like if you start at home and your kids are surrounded, and it's something that all parents are doing and all kids are on the same page and they're all treating each other equally, there would be less need for the violence. But this is like there's definitely a what do you call it? A generational aspect gap to what like I do think that we run into issues of people who were raised by racist or or parents that are not understanding, and I think that's an issue that you run into. And that's maybe where we start to see this,
change.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I can't blame the parents, Not all the time.
I wouldn't say all the time, but the reason, like from my own perspective, coming from a family of, having a Latino father, having a white mother, I've seen two different worlds, and I've seen
Like their parenting styles are different?
No, I've seen the two different worlds of
Like culture-wise, right?
Culturally, little things like the way that they're treated in society. Obviously, Latinos are typically not treated the same way that white people are, at least in a country or in a society where white people are on top. I've just little things like I've seen my dad get pulled over and ticketed like it's nothing. Whereas my mom can pretty much always get away with it. So it's like there's clearly something going on there. That's just like one example. I could be misreading it, but my parents from day one, because I was raised in a household where there were two different cultures, I was taught to be accepting of all cultures and to be welcoming of all of them, and that for me was kind of my parents' way of being activists. But it is different to each person.
It's funny. I actually live a different life. My parents are both of the same origin, same culture. They are not always outgoing as I am with other cultures, because they are scared. They feel endangered, and
endangered in society.
They feel very endangered. And the thing is, they don't know English. But they're so endangered, they will teach me everything I need to know on how to survive, but not get along with everybody else. They didn't teach me that. I actually had to step out of my own bounds. That's why I don't say it's always the parents' fault, because I had to step out of my bounds, such as going into college, where I made, obviously, not just the same, like, racial friends. I made versatile, big group of friends from different places, obviously, I can't even name today. And because of it, it made a difference on how I am with everybody else.
It's very interesting, in terms of the way you're brought up and the way your parents bring you up. Like, I grew up and still live in Thornhill, and my elementary school was 90% Jewish, but most of my closest friends weren't Jewish. So even now, my closest friends are not Jewish. So, that goes down to, I guess for me, I was raised, and I think we're all raised the same way, to care about the character and not the skin color.
Very much.
And do you think that by advocating for these types of causes on social media, we're making a difference? Because clearly it's making a difference in our own homes.
I think it makes a difference for people who don't maybe think the way that us in this room think, right? There's people who maybe do have their prejudices or don't understand why somebody is sending a certain message. They may, so social media can help to explain, hey, this is why you should care. These are the facts. I understand that you've been raised your whole life to hate minorities, but here's this message, and you can spread it across social media and change people's minds.
I think that it's also matter that I agree with him that it's not your parents' fault. And the reason is because you are supposed to be better than your past generations.
That too.
Also because it is a gap. Like, for example, people, and I bring this down, for example, to the issues of the status. Like, let's remove this status because this guy was racist. And it's like, the reality is that in the past, there was a lot of racism. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you compare my grandmother with me, you will think, oh, that old lady is racist, even when that old lady is not even white. Or,
that's totally, like 100%, like it just, because I, obviously, my grandmother was the same way. She was a Latino woman, but you bet she had her tendencies and I don't know if I would call it racism. I think I would call it more ignorance that comes from some of these communities.
Exactly. And it's like, it is, and under that theory, I cannot go and blame my grandmother who was uneducated, who could barely read, who was raised 9 kids and doing a big effort. Oh, because you were not woke enough. Like, what the hell? Like,
no, and that's the thing, right? There's going to be a point in time where we are going to be less woke than our children. We are going to not understand the things that they're fighting for, the things that they believe in. We're going to be those people at one point, no matter how hard we try to keep up with the times and try to keep, and try to stay woke. We will get to a point in our lives where we are not going to, there's going to be things that our children are fighting for and we're like, why is this
My mom doesn't understand social media most of the time. She's like, where are you posting that? Where are you saying that? And I'm like, chill. Why? Because there is a generation, like
there is a big difference.
Yeah, like her priorities back in her age were different than mine, and that's how it goes.
And it's the same way that your parents teach you differently than their parents taught them.
Exactly.
In some regards, right? Every generation, there's some sort of change to make a difference in your children.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to pivot to a larger audience in terms of pushing your message to a larger audience. Do you think that celebrities and athletes should be using their platforms to advocate for causes they believe in or causes that should be fought for in their eyes? Kevin?
Yes, 100%. Why? They're as human as me and you. Very much human. I watch LeBron rarely. And when I do, it's only to make some bets. Excuse me. But when it's really time for him to speak, he's actually voicing exactly what everybody should be voicing. Especially when you feel something, you could see it, but because you're making such a difference in somewhere else, it's good to speak about it. It's good to speak about it, He's one of my greatest examples on why you should be a celebrity speaking on it. Not every celebrity should speak on it.
Yeah, some celebrities speak on things and they don't know what they're doing.
They would be talking out the wazoo.
Well, that's the question. How do you determine which celebrity should be speaking out on?
Well, and also it depends because a lot of celebrities also voice what comes to their mind, and in many cases they do it only because of once again gaining popularity, becoming more famous. Oh, look how merciful and virtuous I am! Like
LeBron's not like that. LeBron's not like that. LeBron is not like that. He doesn't look for numbers. He is the numbers himself. Enough to say he created more numbers from just speaking out honestly. He had an incident when he was playing basketball recently with a young, I think, couple. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it's crazy the way he dealt with it.
Can you just tell our viewers what the incident was?
I think it was about some slurs going on back and forth.
It was
Just,
like a
men's
it was like
basketball.
a courtside argument, right? He was arguing with two people on the court side.
And it turned
Yeah.
into a little color thing, and it should not. But he really addressed it so appropriately. I guarantee you, everybody who understood LeBron already shook their head. Meaning we understand. We are all on the same page with that. Because he didn't go out of his way to say things just to get you interested. He's only speaking on his facts, what he believed, what was actually necessary of him at that time. That's all you need to do.
Anna?
No, well, I don't know that much about LeBron James, but what I'm trying to say is that there are many celebrities who also do things only because, this is the right, this is what is popular right now, and therefore that's what I'm going to follow. And also other celebrities, when they advocate for otherwise, they get shut down or they get backlash. One of the examples that I take is Willie Colon. He's a very famous salsa singer in New York. And the guy actually, he just say you know what? I don't believe in what a lot of Democrats say about the Hispanic population. I think that they take us as numbers. And honestly, he was just right straight a Republican. And what did a lot of people start saying? Look, you cannot be a Latino and you cannot be a Republican. You cannot do this, you cannot do that. And it's sorry, but if this guy is actually creating awareness about something, for example, he's just like me, he's an anti-socialist. It's he has valid reasons. He always speak about what happens in Venezuela. He always speak what happened in Nicaragua, in Cuba. And, he has very good points. So, and the thing is that when he's a celebrity and he goes out of the way, especially in Hollywood, there is a trend for more, progressive left-leaning things. It's they exclude you.
One of the prime examples is Gina Carano, who spoke up about the coronavirus, and she compared it to the time right before the Holocaust. And to many that was very inappropriate, and she got fired for it because she spoke out against the main narrative, right? So, like you're saying, some people who speak out, they get ostracized, and
that did happen to LeBron once. He and Kobe he commented and he said, didn't LeBron do something contradictory with China? Theodore responded saying, I think he caught slack for avoiding questions about the Hong Kong issues. So I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and I don't want to be exactly quoted because I could be wrong, but it was when there were the Hong Kong protests. I'm pretty sure LeBron commented saying that, basically calling to end the protests, and it could be the other way around, but I'm pretty sure what he was saying was to end the protests, and it was getting violent and whatever it was, and people, he caught a lot of backlash for that because people were do you realize what's happening in Hong Kong and why these people are protesting?
Sometimes as a leader, it's so hard. You don't want to see people get hurt. If I could say pull back because I already see the damage coming or it's already present, I would say fall back respectfully. Because that first way was not working, and it can save many lives. If I was to tell you to keep pushing, some people might take it the wrong way and push too aggressively, or more lives can be taken during that protest or something can happen. So not all leaders can always have a good example or good reason to why they say no, pull back. But logically speaking, if you see something is not working at that time being, but yet you're still pushing onto it, why? That's pretty much called insanity. We run in that same circle.
Yeah.
Do not be that person. And as a leader, you're going to instruct that to people and tell people, hey, pull yourself back.
And that's the thing. With celebrities, a lot of people consider them leaders, so it really matters what they say. And, the award shows... Not all celebrities?
No.
Which part? That they're not leaders?
No, not all celebrities can be actual leaders. I just believe they're just at a point in social media platform where they lead the numbers. They're not an actual leader.
They're not. I think there's a different. You know what? That's a good point. Is that there's a difference between being at the top and being and leading. No, but being at the top because you're a celebrity and leading people because of that celebrity status. But are you really a leader in the right way? Are you actually leading people towards the right thing?
Exactly.
And
well, here's the thing about leading and being an activist, a celebrity activist. We talked about this in, I think, season 1 or season 2. We had an episode on celebrities in politics and award shows. The ratings have been dropping. The more that celebrities have been making political speeches at the award shows, the ratings have been dropping year after year after year. So, a lot of people would say that they go to entertainment to get away from the noise, to get away from the news. And now with sports and entertainment having these political messages, activism going on, does it help or does it hinder?
I think... Sorry, would you?
No, go ahead.
I think it helps. It especially helps because now the world's getting bigger. The world's getting very digital. Everybody's seeing everything. If your favorite player is not speaking up at one point, it hurts too because you're now just playing for a check, right? If I was a black man just playing basketball for a check and I see my people on the streets getting harmed and I'm not speaking about it, some of us understand when to speak and some of us know when not to. But if I could and I understood why I'm saying it, I would use my voice.
I think that is also that it depends. And recently I watched a documentary about Pelé, the soccer player. And the guy was basically, he's like considered the king of football. And one of the examples that I saw is that when he was racing into fame, Brazil went through a dictatorship that was brutal, that people were oppressed on the street, people were getting disappeared. It was insane. And he got a lot of judgment, like, oh, you didn't stand up for the people in Brazil. Why you didn't complain? Why you even meet with the government? And Pelé, he was very I don't want to be political. And the reason why is, people start to compare Muhammad Ali, for example, and they say Muhammad Ali is creating awareness and he's doing this, he's doing that. But Muhammad Ali lives in the United States, a nation that still cares about human rights. Pelé lives in Brazil. If he starts causing problems to this dictatorship, he's going to disappear. Period.
Yeah.
That's it,
That's a very good point to make. There is a difference in when somebody should speak up or when they can speak up because
America allows that.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? American celebrities, Canadian celebrities, whatever. These are people in a position where they can stand up for what they believe in and they can use their platform to send a message. But God forbid you're somewhere else.
Cuba, for example.
A lot of places in South America.
China,
the Middle East. There's places where if you're a celebrity and you were to say something as an activist or just in general, something like that maybe too political, that could be the end of your career or the end of you.
You, exactly.
And we don't want that.
No. So, I mean, that obviously the end, we talked about a cancel culture, but the question that I want to leave on the table now as the final question is, what do you think activism will look like in the next 5 to 10 years? So 50 years ago, we didn't have technology, so it was literally protests and petitions. Now, everything is digital. You can sign a petition with 2 clicks on your phone, on the computer, while people are still protesting. Do you think that, for example, we're going to see less people out on the street and just completely digital, or how's that going to work?
It's crazy. Yes and no. I feel like it still might be the same cycle. Before, again, we didn't have internet like that. And so at one point we had to be more physical, more prone to being physical on the streets. But now, and going on to the future, again, technology will still matter. Humans will still matter, where I think both, presence of social media and physically being at those rallies, and it matters. And I'll say activism is going to stay on that route. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, there's 2 ways it can go. It can go for the worse, where stuff, if you get on the street, it's just now more violent. Or people are just not doing anything and they're all texting on the phone. Nobody's on the streets. Or, again, the middle situation I just displayed to you guys earlier. Those are the 3 probabilities it's just going to be given to you.
Yeah, I think we're going to see we're going to continue to see people speaking on social media, of course, because we have this platform and people are going to use it to, people use it all the time to say what they're feeling, how they feel about something. We're going to continue to see people being activists online. I don't think we're going to see an end to physical activism, people actually going out there. I think we're especially not in countries where there's, Chile had protests recently, very valid ones. I think there's places where we're going to continue to see protests because it's necessary for change. We maybe in North America are in a bit of a different position where social media might even have a big enough impact to make a difference if enough people are talking about it. But you go to another country where that's not the case. Physical activism is needed to actually send your message and to really make a point. And I do think we're going to, the people who really care and they want to see a difference are going to, or not that people who are on social media don't really care, but I mean, there will be people who will physically want to make a difference. So we are going to continue to see people going out. Yeah.
Do you think the causes that people are fighting for today in North America are important?
Very. We live here.
Of course. Sure, our problems aren't as bad as somebody else's, but that's like telling somebody, you can't be sad because somebody else has it worse. It's like, oh, okay, fuck my feelings, I guess. You know what I mean? So I think that's one thing we have to, obviously there's other places that are in much worse situations.
Yeah, I wanted to add that like everyone has their different fight and the different cause. Certainly, I don't feel identified with the causes right now in North America. I have to admit it, but it's because I have my own personal fight with my own country and government.
Your own shit going on.
Exactly, and I cannot honestly. My dream is to see Venezuela free one day, and I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime, but I hope it does, even if I'm old. So and that's the thing. Like everyone has their own thing going on.
Wow,
that's a good answer.
Powerful statements.
That was a very powerful statement.
Regarding Venezuela, the last thing would you consider yourself an activist? Because while you're not in Venezuela, you post a lot on social media.
I try to remain active. I try not to forget about what is going on, and I always like to keep myself informed. However, I don't consider myself an activist. And the reason is because I have friends who are activists, and they are so engaged that even having the opportunity to remain as a refugee in the United States, they went back. And they remain there and they continue the fight, even though they had to live with all the shitty things that are going on. Wow. That's really being an activist, and that's being passionate about what you believe in.
Yeah, and I to add to that, I would not consider myself an activist, despite all the things that I will talk about on social media, whether or not I choose to donate to different things, whatever it might be. I still don't consider myself an activist because I could be doing more, and I acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge that there's people doing way more than me.
Exactly.
But it's not about the people. It's just about what you contribute. And that's why
we're contributors, we're collaborators, but to consider myself as, an activist is like, it's too...
I feel like I'm taking away from people who are like actually activists, who are actually out, like when you look at
making a difference.
Like you look at the protests and the things that happen, like that are happening in Venezuela, it happened in communist Romania, wherever it is. These people are activists and fighting for things that I can't even fathom to fight for. That's where I see a bit of a difference.
People who are actually risking their lives.
I can't even imagine fighting against my government in that way. I can't.
I try not to. That's why, like Elliot brought up to me, and I'll bring it up to you earlier. I remember when we were talking about if I'm an activist or am I an advocate. I think I'm an activist in my own way. Now I have now come to the conclusion near the ending of our show that I am now an activist in my own way. Enough to say the causes I do fight for, such as mental illness and men's health and all these little things, I do try my best, not just to be out there, but to be with them. Man to man or person to person, doesn't matter the case. So, as much as I'm not always going to be on the front line, my front line is at least in front of them. That's my front line, because not everybody can be right in front of the person's face and say what they got to say. So I'm going to take it today. That's my answer. I am an activist, but just in my own small way, enough to say I make my own change.
Yeah.
Enough for the change to be spread.
That is an incredible way to end the show. That's a extremely powerful statement, and I think that's where we're going to leave it today. That was our show for this week. Thank you to everyone that tuned in and that messaged us live. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the program today. How'd you like it?
Ooh-wee. I will tell you about that next week. No, I'm joking, but it was lovely. It was lovely. I couldn't believe it. This is my first time really speaking, so thank you for having me.
You should speak more often.
I
You
try
have
not
an
to.
incredible voice.
See, I try not to because wisdom, it's universal, but not everybody can really accept it. I shared with Elliot because he means so much to me. Enough for me to say, I love this show. Keep having this show. Keep doing what you're doing. Seriously. You make not a difference to people like me, but to people who are just like me and more above me. It doesn't matter. You're making a difference. And that's all you can do. A good one. Keep it up.
Well, thank you. You make a difference in my life, and again, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And I told you both. I told you how great this show would be with Kevin's wisdom.
Yeah, very well spoken. You have like the perfect ASMR voice. If you don't want to like talk politics, you should just open like an ASMR YouTube channel
Or life coach thing.
life coaching.
Honestly.
It's a path. I am gonna bring that soon. But there are some things for myself that I got to better on my own, because to pass such a thing, you really got to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Activism and advocacy, you got to be a part of what you're advocating sometimes. Without it, you just won and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's it.
That's fair. I don't even know how to respond to that. I don't even want to talk anymore because that's what I want to end off. But as you know, I have to keep talking. So thank you again for being on the program. Christina and Anna, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Kevin, for coming to the show too.
Ladies,
Yeah.
you were wonderful. Very wonderful. Thank you for having me here. And
Thanks
nice
for
to
coming on.
meet
It
you.
was great. I loved this show. This is people in the comments are like, "This was a great show." Yeah.
And it really was. So once again, that was our show for this week. Thank you to everyone that tuned in, messaged us live. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Christina and Anna. And a brand new episode of the Raben Report will be back next week, same day, same time, almost the same people. Have a good night, everyone.